Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hello everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday on this here YouTube channel, on Rumble, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, where we talk about the culture war with a strong emphasis on what is going on in the cult of the socialist left. Because of course, as I'm trying to find my volume to turn my mic up so I can actually hear myself, of course, the left is a cult. We're surrounded by cults on all sides. I'm not saying the right isn't its own version of a cult. The right is kind of like their own, like, stupid, like, sticking their head in the sand, never want to face the truth about their own inadequacies of a cult. But we don't focus on the right because the right is so feckless that there's no point in focusing on them because they don't ever do anything of note, and the left has all the power in the country. And so if I'm going to focus on one cult or the other, I'd rather focus on the cult that's actually going to impact my life, not the ones that spend all their time crying and posting memes and stuff like that. And so today we're going to be just watching, like, basically all week. I've got a pretty relaxed agenda for this week. I basically have a bunch of things that I've wanted to watch for a while that I just haven't had a chance to watch. Going into kind of like the last couple weeks of the year, guys, I'm going to be just to let everyone know, I'm going to be taking some downtime. I'm going to be taking it easy. I plan to do my normal schedule for this week in terms of like streaming at 5 and then doing Socialism Saturday. For the last 2 weeks, though, of the year, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break. And I'm going to be reevaluating a lot of things because I don't know if what I'm doing is actually a good use of my time anymore, is the long and the short of it. I don't know that what I'm doing actually matters. I don't know that what I'm doing is a good use of my time. I want to keep doing something in 2024 related to this, but I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what that is, and I don't know what form it's going to take. I suspect it's going to take the form of me doing a lot less public stuff and me only doing stuff for people that are actually supporting the work I'm doing. But we're going to have to see. Anyway, so the point is that I want to take it a little bit easy this week. I basically have some stuff that I want to watch. I'm going to use these streams as my opportunity to research. And if you guys want to come along with me, you are more than welcome to do that. Doesn't seem like many people want to come along with me today, and that's part of the reason why I'm just saying that this is not a good use of my time anymore. So if you want to, guys, please go ahead and mount the like button for me. If you can't mount the like button, then get the fuck off my channel. You are absolutely feckless and useless if you can't find it amongst yourself to hit a goddamn like button. And I'm deadly serious about that. Maybe I'm in a little bit of a mood today, but for real, if you guys can't hit a like button, you ain't gonna do anything of substance. Get the fuck off my channel and go watch fucking Ethan Ralph or cartoons or something else. I'm actually serious about that. All right, so what are we gonna watch today? See, I'm making this so enticing, isn't it? You want to know why? Because I desperately want to stop doing this, and so I'm just going to like self-sabotage myself into like not being able to do it anymore. Because that's where I'm at right now with all of this. Because it's not. Let me just let's have some real talk for a second. Let's have some real talk. If people don't care enough, last week I released a video. Last week I released a video of actual sex educators working in schools today talking about how parents have no parental rights when it comes to, well, anything. Flat out saying that. No parental rights when it comes to anything. And because that video was half an hour long, I couldn't get people to watch it. And I had people messaging me saying, well, Carlin, when are you going to cut this down into 1 minute clips? Because we can't be expected to watch anything more than a minute. And I was like, you want to look at me with a straight face and tell me that you care about your kids when you're unwilling to watch a video that's longer than 1 minute to tell you how you're going to lose your parental rights? You're serious. You love your kids so much that you won't put in more than a minute of time to learn about how you're going to lose your parental rights? All right. I don't believe that you're a serious person when you're saying shit like that. And that is pretty goddamn indicative of what I have to deal with every single day, which is why I'm like, you know what? This even matters anymore. It's not going to do anything. Not going to do anything at all. But okay, here we are again. All right, fine. Anyway, so what we're going to watch today that will make absolutely no difference in the world is a presentation that I've had on the back burner for a while. And it is called Reproductive Rights Are Queer Rights. Now, the reason that this is actually important, let me explain to you why this is important, and then let me explain to you why it will make absolutely no difference at all. Why are we watching a presentation called Reproductive Rights or Queer Rights? Well, because I've been saying for a while that when I go undercover at socialist events, like the in-person stuff, and a lot of the stuff I've gone undercover at is like it's about abortion. It's about, like, they call it reproductive justice, but it's about abortion. And in the presentations about abortion, they talk about trans rights, which are queer rights, of course, in the land of the Marxists, because trans and queer are two different things. They're queer rights. That's what they really care about. They talk about these things in the same sentence. In every presentation about reproductive justice, they talk about, and I'm just going to say, but I need people to understand that when I say trans, I really mean queer, because these people use the language interchangeably, but they don't mean normal trans people. They mean queer. If anyone has questions about why that is, let me know in the chat and I will explain why that is again ad nauseum for the 8,000th time. But if you're new, that's okay. Like, if you're new and you're just finding it, that's okay. Like, I'm happy to explain it to new people. But so when the left talks about like abortion access and quote unquote reproductive justice, they talk about trans rights in the same sentence. They talk about them like they're interchangeable. Now, why is this important? Because in the election in November, Ohio passed a ballot measure that amended their state constitution. And that ballot measure essentially made abortion completely legal and a human right in the state of Ohio per the Ohio state constitution up until birth. Okay? So this ballot measure gave unlimited abortion access up until birth in the state of Ohio. Here's what most people on the right don't understand. In the same measure, they wrote it in a way where it not only applies to abortion, it also applies to trans affirming surgery for your children without parental consent. Now, it doesn't say that in the ballot measure. It does not say that specifically. But if you read the language of the ballot measure and you read how they wrote it, that is 100% how it's going to be applied. Because the leftists who wrote it are the same people who speak about trans and queer rights in the same sentence as abortion. It's the same issue for them. Every single time the issue comes up, it's going to be treated the same. And if people don't understand that, then they're going to think it's just about abortion when it is not just about abortion. And then all of a sudden, your kids are able to go get the trans affirming surgery that you've been denying them without your permission, and you wonder how it happened. This is why you need to pay attention to the language. This is why this is significantly more important than most of the bullshit that conservatives spend their time reading about and complaining about. And they wonder why they're losing because they don't understand the mindset and the perspective of the people who are forcing it on them in the first place. Hell, man, I can't even get conservatives to understand the difference between the radical revolutionary socialists that are forcing the cultural revolution in this country and the WEF. Yeah, those are two different things. The radical revolutionary socialists are the ones pushing critical race theory and gender ideology and abolish the police. And they're the ones protesting in favor of Hamas on college campuses. Those are the radical revolutionary socialists. And they are not, I repeat, not the same thing as the WEF. In fact, the radical revolutionary socialists hate the WEF. They hate them. They are not on the same team. Conservatives don't know that, though. They fight every time I try to explain it. They don't listen. And so they treat them as though they're the same team, which means they don't actually understand the enemy that they are fighting. And Lita's correct. That is because conservative influencers conflate the two, because conservative influencers do not understand what they're talking about, and they misinform their audience. They lie to their audience, and then their audience, because conservatives love to engage in hero worship, their audience gets belligerent and combative every single time you try to tell them the truth, and they don't want to hear it, and they whine and complain, and they piss and moan, and then they call you names, and they say, you're just fat and ugly. That's what conservatives do. And this is why they're going to lose. MB, thank you for the super chat. Gentle reminder, queer is a far left ideology, while LGBT is normal. That is exactly right, MB. Thank you for the gentle reminder. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. Marxist, taking control over language institutions and academia. The conservatives, reading about Snow White or whatever is trending on any given day. And that is exactly and precisely the problem, isn't it? Yeah, that's the problem. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, at least we can do what we can do, I suppose. So this is what we're going to be watching today, guys, and I'm going to be breaking it down. And this is basically a research stream for me. And thank you for coming along for the ride with that. Just a couple things before we get started. Number one, please do make sure you are subscribed to my Substack, which is Carlin, Karlyn, .substack.com. This is actually my content hub on the internet. This is where I post all my best content, including the breakdowns from last week's infiltration into the National Sex Ed Conference, which was an exclusive for my supporters. In fact, if you head over to the Substack, if you want to go inside the National Sex Ed Conference, all of that is available in my weekly newsletter that I send out. You can access day 1, day 2, day 3 of our multi-day infiltration. But I am also dropping some clips from the Sex Ed Conference, to include a clip yesterday, in case anyone missed it, of yesterday. I dropped the clip of them bragging about performing top surgery on 16-year-olds. That happened at the National Sex Ed Conference. Just today, I dropped a clip about, did you guys know that there are organizations that are selling gender-affirming tools directly to your kid's school nurse or the school psychologist? You can see the video of them. I learned a whole new I learned a new term and a new device. Does everyone know what a packer is? A packer is a penis-like device that trans people, teenagers in this case, because they're talking about putting them in schools, they are putting them in schools. Teenagers in this case, they put the packer, which is like a silicone, like shaped kind of like device, in their pants to look like they have a bulge. Now, some packers are made of silicone, so they're soft and they're just for appearances, but there are other packers that are made of hard plastic. So if you want to have sex, you can with the packer. This is all in your kid's school. I know because I have them on video saying it. And they come in all different colors for different skin tones. And you can even get uncircumcised or circumcised versions, depending on your preference for that. If I was to recommend, I would say uncircumcised, but that's just me. Also, if you can't afford one, you can just you can wear a condom that you filled up with water and put that in. I don't think that sounds very comfortable myself, to walk around with a condom filled up with water in my pants. But apparently that's an option if people can't afford I have this all on video. You can watch it on my Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. I'm going to be dropping more clips from the National Sex Ed Conference all week, and you will be able to find that exclusively on my Substack, because God knows none of the conservative media outlets are going to cover it, because that would require them to do their goddamn jobs. And we know that's not going to happen. And so if you guys want to support the work I'm doing and to get access to the work I'm going to be doing in the new year, because I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm going to be locking down a lot of my content to supporter only in the new year, just because I'm tired of this. If you want to support the work I'm doing and get access to 100% of the content that I create, you can head over to the Substack and support my work for $8 a month, $80 a year. Like I said, I am trying to get 100 new supporters by the end of the year. I'm about 20 there, so I have 80 left to go. So I need 80 new supporters by the end of the year in order to stay on track with the funding goals that I have for next year. And again, guys, I'm in a place where I am pretty much on the verge of locking down almost all of my content to people who are supporting my work for many, many, many reasons. And I'm not going to go into them here. But if you want to get in on that, then make sure you're funding it. I will be dramatically reducing the amount of content that I create if I don't meet my funding goals for the end of the year. And then, you guys are going to have conservative media to rely on to tell you the stories. Oh, wait, they don't do journalism like I do. So if you want to keep this stuff coming, guys, if you want me to be infiltrating conferences next year, if you want more of this stuff, then make sure you sign up. Make sure you fund it, because I am 100% completely grassroots funded by you. Can't do it without you. And so the amount of journalism that I'm able to produce moving forward will be directly dependent on the amount of people that are funding that journalism. And it's no longer going to come out of the bank account of Carlin's savings account, because if you value what I do, then you should be, funding what I do. And if you don't value what I do, then it's going to go away. And that's just the way it is. And when you fund my work, you make it possible for me to provide stuff to people like two ladies here. We live on one income, about $380 a month. I do try to make things affordable for people to fund it, but some people just can't fund it. So when you fund my work for people who can afford it, you make it available to people who can't afford it. You can give gift subscriptions and stuff like that. And, I guess that's really all I have to say about that. I have nothing else. I have nothing else to say. I hate shilling my work, and it annoys me that I have to do it so much. But this is the reality in which we are, because conservatives would rather fund libs of TikTok than fund something like this. Conservatives would rather fund the Daily Wire, which lies to them, than something like this. I'm not bitter or anything. I'm not in a pissy mood or anything. I'm just really sick of this shit. Anyway. I'm like, my great selling point for funding my work is you all suck and all of your kids are going to be trans and I hate everyone and everything. And I'm tired of, I don't know why it should be this hard. And yeah. No, I don't want you to do this, Lita. Lita says, do you want us to unsubscribe and resubscribe to pay? No, guys, this is not a money thing. Listen, let me be, I feel like I have to say this every single time, because again, this is something that conservatives don't understand. This is not a money thing. It's not a money thing. No, I don't want you to unsubscribe and resubscribe at a higher rate. I want more people, of the 14,000 people who are subscribed to my Substack, who consume my work for free, who many of which steal my work and claim it as their own. I would like more people to pony up and support the creation of the content, not my current audience paying more money. This is not a money issue. This is a value issue. That's what it is. Those are two different things, conservatives. It's not like the income is not as much a problem as the lack of people valuing what is being provided to them. That's what it is. Anyway, let's see. Not enough. Let's just say this. If less than one, wait, let me do math real quick in my head. Yeah. So if less than 2% of my audience funded what I was doing, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. This wouldn't be happening, but here we are. Again. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say. I don't want to keep complaining, because I could literally complain all day about how conservatives expect everything to be done for them, and how conservatives don't like to contribute to things, and how conservatives call you a grifter if you say, well, I'm tired of paying for myself for something that you're taking advantage of, how conservatives ignore things that are happening in the schools because they're not entertaining enough. I could go on and on and on about this for days, and no one would hear it because they're already watching a Libs of TikTok video or something like that. So let's just dig into the video, shall we? Let's just watch this video and we'll do what we do. It is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, let's get started. I don't have anything else to say.
For this super exciting panel. It's a very hard, trying times for a lot of us, especially queer people. And I'm super excited to be having this conversation The topic that we're going to be talking about today is reproductive rights are queer rights. We're going to be talking about the intersection of reproductive rights and queer rights, as well as the social and political climate that's happening right now. I'm super excited to introduce our panelists. Today with us, we have Viva Huiz, Eric Maroney, and Cherish Starks. Hey, y'all. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Yeah, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. So your names, your pronouns, and a little bit about yourself or like the organization that you work for, or all that kind of stuff. Aviva, you want to start us off?
Here we go. There's the unmute. Hey everybody. I'm Viva Ruiz. I'm a Shiana Day. I am a New York Ecuadorian person. My parents, I'm the first branch of this family over in this land. I do a thing called Thank God for Abortion. I'm an artist, creative person.
Thank God
also
for abortion. All right.
Advocacy. My whole life, I'm a retired sex worker.
1 year ago.
And let me see, what else can I say? Queer. I've had 2 abortions. And I could stop there for now.
Nice. Cherish?
Hi. Okay. So my name is Cherish Starks. My pronouns are they, them, sometimes he. I work for the AFIA Center that's located in Texas, and we are...
Doesn't they, them look like a he? They, them definitely looks like a he to me. So how do we know these people are queer? Now, Eric is probably getting roped into this because he doesn't have they pronouns. She, they, them. That means these people are queer. This one are queer. Queer is fundamentally different than trans. Non-binary and trans are not the same thing. And I don't care if they call themselves trans and non-binary, because when non-binary people call themselves trans, they don't mean transition. They mean transcend or transform. These are 2 fundamentally different things. Normal trans people uphold the gender binary in that they acknowledge that there are men and there are women, and that's all there is, and you are either one or the other. Non-binary people, the people who are using the they, them pronouns or the she, they pronouns or the he, they pronouns, they do not acknowledge the gender binary exists. They want to abolish the gender binary because they believe that the gender binary was created by capitalism to oppress women. That's what the patriarchy is. And then it created the nuclear family, which was created to uphold capitalism, and that they cannot get rid of capitalism, which is their real enemy, until they get rid of the nuclear family. And that is why they're trying to abolish the gender binary. So anytime you see someone calling themselves they, that is not a normal trans person. That is a queer activist. A queer activist. And that's what's important, guys.
A Black-led organization that centers reproductive justice and caring for, Black folk who are capable of giving birth and whatnot, and making sure they have the access to the healthcare and reproductive healthcare that they need.
Absolutely.
Hey all, Eric Maroney here, coming in from New Haven, Connecticut, the unceded territory of the Progressive, Quinnipiac, Hammonasset, Wammature people. I'm a community college professor here in New Haven. I'm also a graduate student working on a PhD in American Studies and Gender and Sexuality. More interestingly, I'm a proud union member and identify as a transgender man.
I fucking knew it.
I organized with an organization.
I fucking knew that. I fucking knew he was trans. I fucking knew it.
Called the Tempest Collective. And also
seriously? Who knows what the Tempest Collective is? That's funny. It's funny that Eric is in the Tempest Collective because I almost watched a video today from the Tempest Collective. Who knows what the Tempest Collective is? The Tempest Collective. Who knows what the Tempest Collective is? It's a very specific thing. Okay. The Tempest Collective is a national collective of radical revolutionary socialists. The Tempest Collective had a huge presence at the Socialism 2023 conference that I went undercover at. And you knew that they had a huge presence because anytime someone from the Tempest Collective got the microphone, they would say, I'm Jimmy Jones with the Tempest Collective. They made sure everyone knew that they were with the Tempest Collective. These are radical revolutionary socialists, guys. They believe in the overthrow of the capitalist government. They do not believe that that's going to be accomplished through political means. They believe in getting themselves into positions of institutional power and influencing the institution in that way. On my Substack, I have recordings from one of the members of the Tempest Collective. Her name is Christian Godfrey. Christian Godfrey works at the University of Arizona. She's the diversity and equity director at the University of Arizona, in which she teaches queer liberation Marxist classes on the taxpayer dime of the taxpayers of Arizona. So congratulations, Arizona, for that. But anytime you hear the Tempest Collective, that the Tempest Collective is about as far left as you can get. And they're very serious about overthrowing the current form of government, but they are not seeking to do that through political means. They are seeking to do that by getting into positions of institutional power. How do I know this? Because they have it all on their website, which I believe is tempestmag.com.org, something like that. But if you look up the Tempest Collective, it'll come right up. Also, anytime you hear the term collective in general, that's going to indicate radical revolutionary socialist. So I just want to rewind that part so you can hear it again. Revolutionary means they want to overthrow capitalism. They want to overthrow the current system of the United States. Guys, if you think that the Democratic Socialists of America are the farthest left, I've got some news for you. There are many, 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 many more far left groups than the Democratic Socialists of America. Fucking Tempest Collective. I fucking knew it.
I'm a proud union member and identify as a transgender man. I organize with an organization called the Tempest Collective, and also locally organizing with a group called Connecticut Reproductive Justice Mobilization.
Beautiful. I'm so glad you are all here with us tonight. I'm sure, like many other queer people, due to the recent overturn of Roe v. Wade, we've been talking a lot about reproductive rights, and I know that like a lot of queer people are left out of this conversation when major news anchors are talking about it, or when news publishers like New York Times or whatever. Queer people are always left out, and so basically that's what we're here to talk about. But before we do that, I know we're all coming in from different parts of the country, so I just wanted to start the conversation off by asking if y'all have attended any rallies recently. I know there's been huge rallies booming across the nation. So my question is, like, have y'all attended? What is the climate like? What are the people saying? What are the people feeling, basically? And I'll just open this up to anybody who wants to start us off.
So I know here in Texas, there have been several rallies. I have not personally been to any of the recent ones. I did when the first, opinion came out before it was actually confirmed. But a lot of the folks from my organization and a lot of my friends have been able to make it out. And it's just, everyone's very passionate right now. It's a lot for folks, and everyone's trying to still process and figure out what to do next and how to go about moving forward. I know that here in Texas, a lot of the abortion funds are on pause right now because we can't risk bringing our folks into a legal situation that could harm them, but we're still making sure to care for our folks, make sure that they know that we are here for them, and make sure that they can still seek access to healthcare that will be beneficial to them, allowing them their own birthing choices, and just being able to remain in a safe position.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess
anybody else? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Viva.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, does anybody else?
Okay. So I attended a couple right here in New Haven for folks, this is a New Haven event, but it's a sort of smaller city, but 500 people came out. I'd say characterized as multi-generational, very bold. There does seem to be a bit of a generational divide, and I don't want to over-exaggerate that. I think that it's small, but younger people are fed up with the Democrats, fed up with the NGO model. There is a boldness that is questioning even the legitimacy of the courts, let alone the decision. Debates about whether or not we pack the courts, which ultimately leads to their further legitimization, or if we look for alternative ways to think about that.
So socialists want to abolish the courts. They don't want to pack the courts. The Democrats want to pack the courts. This is a fundamental difference, and I really need people to understand this. Socialists want to abolish the courts. Why do they want to abolish the courts? That's a pop quiz for the chat. They talk openly about this. I have them on videos saying this over and over and over again. They want to abolish the courts. They might accept packing the courts in like the short term, because that's going to disrupt things, but the ultimate goal is to get rid of them. Why? Exactly. Reagan in for the win. They want to abolish the courts because it gets in the way of democracy, which to them, democracy means socialism. The courts stand in the way of their democracy. Judges are appointed and not democratically elected, which means that it stands in their way of democracy. The courts are a check on their power. Exactly. They want full control. They want to be able to control everything. That's why they want to abolish the courts. Democrats want to pack the courts. Socialists want to abolish the courts. They're fundamentally different.
And I think it's not lost on people either that in the week following the decision that the Democrats raised $80 million. So it's really, I think that there's an awareness that there is a bit of political, taking advantage of the situation, and people are not having it.
Yeah.
I want to offer that I also attended the Queer March in New York City, which is organized by a group called Reclaim Pride. Probably about 10,000 people there, and just that abortion rights and access to reproductive justice were really central to the claims and to the slogans that day.
Hey, so the climate, first of all, I'm going to say I'm a little scratchy. I'm recovering from COVID. I know that you also are, Sviani. I'm sorry about that. So forgive me for that. But different things, I mean, depending on where you stand, right? But I'm in New York, and there were some rallies a few weeks before, and then afterwards, right? Queer Lib is great. Reclaim Pride, they invited us this year to lead the march. So Thank God for Abortion was at the front of the march with our banner. And we've always been like queer centered. So it's been, I will tell you my experience over the years marching in Pride since 2015. There was not a lot of love for abortion in Pride from like any of the big Pride orgs. And, even
why was there not a lot of love for abortion in Pride in 2015? I'll answer. Because the queer Marxists did not hijack the LGBT movement until after the gay marriage decision in 2015. Here's what my dog is losing her fucking mind. This is great. What happened? Why my husband is not shutting up the dog, I don't understand. What happened is prior to 2015, there was a legitimate LGBT rights movement focusing mostly on gay marriage, because gay marriage was really now my other dog's barking too. Now the gay marriage was really the last civil rights battle that like was a real problem. And they won that in 2015. After they won the gay marriage battle in the Supreme Court, the queer Marxists, who had always been trying to hijack it, I'm not saying they just started trying to hijack it in 2015. They were always trying to hijack it. But after the Supreme Court decision, what happened is that, no, he did not do that. What happened is that I can't even talk without my own dog fucking interrupting me. What happened after the gay marriage decision was that essentially there was no need for an LGBT rights movement anymore. Like, they won, the problem was solved. And so at that point, because there was no more need for a legitimate LGBT rights movement, it was much easier for queer Marxists to come in and hijack the movement and use it for their purposes. So when she says that, and this is why it's so important, guys, to understand the difference between gay and queer, or trans and queer, because they are not the same thing. Every single time that the conservative right shits on gay people, they're driving people away that could be potential voters for them. Every single time the conservative right shits on trans people and makes all and claims that all trans people are groomers and pedophiles, they are driving people away that could bring in votes for them. They don't realize this because they're too fucking stupid to understand that there is a difference between trans and queer and gay and queer. They are not the same thing at all. What these people are queer Marxists. They came in, they hijacked the legitimate LGBT rights movement, and they made it their own because there was no longer a problem that needed to be solved after gay marriage was legalized for like normal people.
A few years ago with Reclaim Pride, but this year it is what it is, and this year is different, and it better be, it has to be different, and everything's laid on being different. But
yeah, hang on. Billboard Chris is a perfect example of someone who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but even more importantly, someone who doesn't actually care, because he is a paid shill that shouldn't even be here, because Billboard Chris is Canadian. So why isn't Billboard Chris working on this problem in Canada? Because it's actually much worse in Canada than it is here. So why isn't Billboard Chris in Canada, because he's fucking Canadian, trying to fix the problem in Canada? He's not in Canada because he is a paid shill to be here. I bring this up because for people who are not on Twitter, Billboard Chris has been attacking Buck Angel. Buck Angel, legitimate trans person. Buck Angel, very positive influence. Very positive influence. Buck Angel is like one of the originals, man. Buck Angel has been talking about this stuff and working with kids on this stuff, and like helping them like through whatever thing they're going through and all this stuff, and telling them to slow down, like encouraging non-medical and stuff like that. Buck Angel is an absolute asset for anyone who actually cares about winning and cares about the legitimate problem. Billboard Chris prefers to spend his time attacking Buck Angel and saying that Buck Angel should be excommunicated from the movement entirely because Buck Angel is a trans porn star that sells sex toys for trans people. And it's like, bro. Who do you think is paying? I'm not saying this is not like a public thing, but I know where I have heard where the money's coming from privately behind the scenes. Where do you? He's a paid shill. He's a paid shill that is paid to advance a narrative. And this is why conservatives lose. Billboard Chris also, by the way, doesn't believe that the public schools are the problem, which is a whole other thing. Like he was talking about this several months ago. Billboard Chris apparently thinks that the public schools are fine and that school choice is just going to fix everything when of course it's not. So he's lying to his audience about that. But Billboard Chris is very nice and he's very soft spoken and he just walks around with a billboard and that's all he does. He walks around with a billboard with a video camera to own the libs that try to come up and argue with him. And so even though he does nothing of actual substance, even though he attacks people who have been in this longer than he has, even though he's not even effing from here and has no ties to America so far as I know. Yeah, that movie will save everything. Indeed. Anyway, if you don't know who Billboard Chris is, consider yourself lucky. Billboard Chris also went around telling people I was mentally ill after having never spoken to me, so that was really nice. That got back to me rather quickly. Anyway, let's just keep going.
The rallies were, it's New York. There was a lot of they were big. It was really beautiful to be in the organizing of that. Some with the backing of like Planned Parenthood Action, the PPAC, but also be led by Repro Justice.
Cody, how is that movie influencing culture when the only people that are going to see it are paying the Daily Wire money already? How is the movie going to influence culture exactly? How? Any thoughts on that? Because it's my understanding that the only people who can watch that movie are subscribers to the Daily Wire. So, how exactly is the movie going to influence culture when the only people who are going to see it are subscribers to the Daily Wire? The answer is, it's not going to influence culture. It's not going to influence culture at all, in any way. This is another lie that conservatives like to tell themselves, when in fact they're just making media to reinforce their damn echo chamber, and that's it. So no, it's not going to influence culture in any way.
That was different. That felt real different this year to be in organizing where named, Black, Indigenous, people of color, Repro were named to be like, can we please put Repro at the front? I've never heard that. And so Liberate Abortion was a big part of the organizing for the big rally in New York. And that was really beautiful, to see just kind of different leadership and the people stepping aside, the stepping asideness that I haven't seen in some places, not all places that are people willing to step aside. So, but there's some different things, and there better be, I'm like, there better be different ways of doing things because it's late in the day. So, depending on how you see it, there are some different things, there are some same things, but definitely, I was out for some, and then I got COVID for others, and it is, it's that, I'm going to name Adrienne Marie Brown because I was in some immersions with them, and that's why I know Charmin from Liberate Abortion, and it's really beautiful to connect with people in abortion and also in those spaces about the murmuration that
Remind me, what was the cultural impact of What is a Woman? We haven't revisited this since we're talking about the cultural impact of the Daily Wire. What did the movie What is a Woman actually change? What problems did the movie What is a Woman actually solve? Because that was their big hit, right? That was the life-changing movie that was just going to change everything. What problems did What is a Woman actually solve? None. No impact. No impact. Nothing. 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 Nothing, 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 nothing. What is a woman solved? Nothing, 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 no impact. Oh, it was owning the libs. Oh, well, because that's our biggest priority. Who knows? Only Daily Wire subscribers could watch it. What is a woman impacted? Nothing. Well, they remade Snow White. Yup. I'm sure that's going to solve lots of problems. It solved nothing. It changed nothing. It was just preaching to the choir. They own the libs. Nothing. Exactly right. But remember, guys, that was supposed to be the big game-changing. Like that movie was supposed to change everything. I thought that What is a Woman was going to just cure gender ideology completely. Oh, no, it didn't do anything.
Those of us who have been, who are not new to this, it's been hard to step back a little bit and stay off the streets because the body is like, I can't. But it is it's that murmuration thing that everybody's picking up where everybody can't. And so the climate is all different things. A lot of anger, thank God.
Yeah. The rally where Eric and I met was at the New Haven rally. I felt a lot of the anger that you guys are talking about, which I feel like is a propelling emotion for like change to happen. It can be like an ugly emotion, but the people, like y'all said, are fed up with the way that things are happening right now, and I feel like anger is just what was the word I was chasing? The anger is there, but the way I was feeling at the rally in New Haven was it was small, but it was really powerful. I remember at one point we sang. There was a rabbi from the New Haven-based group called Mending Minyan, and we sang this song. And I don't remember what the words were, but I don't know, Eric, if you remember it. For me, that moment was incredibly beautiful. Like hearing everybody sing this. It was a very simple song, but like just like the sheer number of people singing together was like healing for me. If that makes any sense. Okay, so that was great. Connecticut just recently put out, or I guess our Governor Ned Lamont, I think his name is, recently signed a law or like a bill. I don't really know the details of it, claiming that Connecticut will be like a refuge state for folks who are like traveling to get their abortions done. Do y'all know anything about this? You want to speak on this at all?
I would be curious to hear from folks outside of Connecticut how useful a bill or a executive action like this is. Our Governor Lamont put forward a similar decision about trans folks or trans youth who are being, whose families are being investigated and prosecuted in Texas. And while I think these things are important, I think that they are also part of a larger dynamic. And that is, Lamont in some ways is posturing towards business too, right? He's trying to create, I was reading this article this morning in the CT Mirror, so these thoughts are not my own. But he's trying to create a climate in which he's inviting certain businesses or certain sectors to see Connecticut as a place where their workforce will have control over their reproductive ability. And so why is that useful for industry, right? Is that you have predictable patterns of leave and productivity, and also, an ability to attract working people to the state as well. So I do think that, as we return to this discourse that's like led by kind of states' rights rhetoric, right? As frightening as that is, there's something else happening here about the competitiveness again between states for industry and for workers And that's not good for any of us, right? Because it ultimately pits working people against one another, and it uproots communities.
So their position is that competition is not good. Why is their position that competition is not good? Pop quiz for the chat. Why is it these people's position that competition among states, competition among businesses, competition among anything is not going to produce better results? What do you guys think? Because competition is not equitable. Competition is not equitable. They want, well, they want equality of outcomes. Competition is the antithesis of unity and equity. Competition is inequitable. There are winners and losers. Because they're collectivists. Because they're collectivists, they want equity. They don't want equality, they want equity. Competition promotes the individual. Competition upholds capitalism. Yep, exactly.
I'll transition by saying I'm curious to see how people outside of the state may experience bills or legislation like this. How useful, how helpful are these kinds of executive decisions? Or
That's a good playback question. Mm-hmm.
So I can't answer that question yet. I'm actually curious. That's the first time I heard about the refuge law that was the bill that was passed. However, right now we are definitely, all the abortion funds in Texas are like in talks with, lawyers and trying to figure out the legality and all the different barriers to find out what our next moves can be in that process. Which is why, like right now, we are really focusing on helping folks access all their other birthing needs, birthing care, healthcare, especially our focus here at the FIA Center on Black birthing folks and their needs to continue to be safe and continue to get the access to the things that they need.
Yeah, I mean that speaks to like abortion funds for like many different organizations, right? Like that's what the funds are for. It's to like protect people or like get people like the money that they need to like do whatever or like get whatever they need to do or get to like be safe. So that was a really great speaking point, Eric. That was a great thought.
Thank you.
Viva, you want to say anything before I move on, or are you good?
I don't know anything about that particular one in Connecticut, but I think I appreciate the I'm like, what's in it for the state? Like, what's in it for business is a great, is like always the lens that has to be there. And also I appreciate the creative, like workarounds for the decriminalizing of aborted people and providers. Like if, like there has to be, the imagination has to be like a big, like a resource here. Like I know that California, there are other states that are creating legislations to protect, to neutralize, what's happening in the worst, in the most targeted states. I want to shout out New York Abortion Access Fund. They're the group that we have. They're a really small volunteer, staffed group for New York City that is really they're facing a lot and a humongous influx of people coming in from other states, and I need to, we're learning, like, what are the things to name, and if I have Mike, I have to say New York Abortion Access Fund, if just kind of everybody get to know them and there's it's New York. Like, yes, we have the protections that a lot of other states don't. And yet, you know, I have a friend who tried to access an abortion here a couple of years ago and went to a pregnancy crisis place where they gave her the runaround. And, you know, she called another place and they try to talk, you know, there's no safe place really. You know, we're affected. We're all affected by this. So I just want to name New York Abortion Access Fund, and just to direct some support there if people are looking for a place to support.
Absolutely. I mean, like Cherish said, like this is all like brand new stuff, right? Like I hate using the word unprecedented, but like something like this has never happened before. So like I feel like lawyers and like lawmakers and organizations and activists are trying to figure out like logistics of everything, like what can happen, what can't happen. It's all very new, and we're like trying to do the best that we can, I guess, is all everybody can say really. But this is great. This is actually ties into my next point. As how do I want to frame this? As like people who I'm sure we like all know what intersectionality is. As people who know and like practice intersectionality, I think it's important to think about how you know, the overturn of Roe v. Wade, as well as the overturn of any other possible like SCOTUS laws, it's important to think about how it's going to impact multiple types of people, you know? So my question is, okay, well, when I say multiple types, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. Basically, capitalism and like white supremacy and racism all works together to oppress all of
Excuse me, what? Excuse me, what? Capitalism and white supremacy and racism all work together? You don't say. You don't say. You know, I had conservatives on Twitter just but an hour ago assuring me that racism had nothing to do with capitalism at all, and that they were poor, oppressed white people, and that they are oppressed and put upon because of the color of their skin, and that I am the stupid and a leftist and a psyop to infer that whiteness means capitalism. And now here we are, actual leftists, telling us that capitalism and racism and white supremacy are basically the same thing. Let's rewind. I'm going to get my clipping tool. We're going to clip the shit out of this.
So my question is, okay, well, when I say multiple types, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. Basically, capitalism and like white supremacy and racism all works together to oppress all of different types of people, minorities, obviously. And so how do you guys think that the overturn of Roe v. Wade is connected to everything I just mentioned? And Eric, you talked a little bit about this. Go ahead, Chair. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know.
No, I'm definitely down to talk about this because I talk about this all the time. I mean, it's not a surprise that all of these things are connected. If you were listening to Black folk, if you were listening to trans folk, you wouldn't be surprised that this is even came down, because it's all tied into white evangelical supremacy. And so if you don't fit within their ideals, if you don't fit within their beliefs, then they want to see us, they're either going to force you into it or they're going to erase you. And so it's why so often I speak about, sorry, my cat is not happy that she's locked in my room right now, so you might hear her in the background. So I speak so often about how we all need to be focusing on all the different points, how they're trying to erase the history of the oppression that Black folk have experienced, how, you know, we all need to be worried about what's happening to trans folks, how we all need to be worried about what's happening to the autonomy on folks who, you know, are able to get pregnant and whatnot, because it's all tied together. And we can't be divided on it, because that's what they want, because their agenda is all one agenda. This is all part of their one agenda. So we can't be divided on it. We need to realize that we all have to come together to focus on the one agenda that they're pushing out.
Yeah, pop in. It's all connected. Yes, it's all connected. And I think the part of how they have so much power is in the separation of us, you know, that people, and that can be seen at Pride. You know, I saw that at Pride. Like, how the hell are we having fights at Pride, you know, with, you know, I'm going to say cis gay people out here that are like, you don't, but literally have said you don't belong at Pride. These are years past. So and that's actually the genesis of this project, is being in queer community and seeing how little, you know, how people were still disgusted by abortion, to be honest, like disgusted and terrified of the topic. So in like 2014, these conversations became a design and creative project, and now it's different things. But you know, people then were like, why are you doing this? We already have it. We already have it. And I'm not smarter than anybody else. It was like in the news, but it wasn't on the front page. So unless you're in those groups that are—
Hang on. I need to stop that, because what she's saying is actually a completely different point. What she is saying is that when she started going to Pride in 2015, which again, same year that gay marriage got overturned, 2015 is when the queer Marxists came in and started, like, in earnest. They'd already been trying for decades, but like in earnest, pushed hijacking the movement because there was no more movement anymore. When she started going to Pride in 2015, they were like, what the fuck are you doing here? You don't belong here. Because the queer Marxists and the normal gays are two really different things. These are not the same groups. That's why when she went to Pride in 2015, back before they hijacked the movement, the actual just like normal gay people who just wanted to be gay and be left alone were like, what are you doing here? We're not the same. Because these people hijacked the movement and claimed it as their own. That's what happened.
Are targeted, which we know, you know, who aren't. But this isn't new, and it's not new. So the thing that is beautiful now are to see those separations fall. It's heartbreaking because it's so late and they got, you know, all this ground. But it is always been the truth, as Kimberly Crenshaw described as intersectional, the intersectional lens, that a climate change, you know, all of it, like who suffers the most? Black people, people of color.
I love how she just busted out with a climate change in there just out of nowhere that had no relevance to anything.
Poor people, people in rural areas, like trans people, queer people. And that formula, the right knows the formula. They know the formula. Like the other side knows. And they don't, they're relentless. They're relentless. And they use every tactic. And that's part of the project, this project, TGFA. I try and use a lot of the tactics of the right for us because they're very thorough. So yes, we're all connected.
If she only knew.
And yeah, I don't know how to end that. I'm gonna stay there.
I'm gonna pick up right there because I think that the work that you're doing, Viva, is incredibly important. So not only is it that so you mentioned trying to embody the tactics of the right, but there's such a cross between what you're doing and the sort of political tactic of even coming out as a queer person, right? So shouting your abortion, you know, thank God for abortion, the projects that you're involved in. And I found, this is just personally, anecdotally, that the more vicious this legislation becomes, the more I need to be visible, right? The more I need to be out. And that's not how I've lived my life, right? This is a distinctive shift. As somebody who's a little bit older or a little bit more privileged or established in my life, I think that it's necessary to, at the bare minimum, to do that. But the other thing that I want to talk about is sort of what you hear people talk about when they talk about the crisis of care, or what Marxist feminists might call the crisis of social reproductive labor.
Oh!
And that's this idea that, like, we know.
Hello, attack on the nuclear family. Anytime you guys hear the term social reproduction is the system that the Marxists believe upholds capitalism through virtue of the nuclear family, because the nuclear family reproduces capitalism through the birthing and the raising of the future proletarian workers who will be oppressed under capitalism. The whole idea is that social systems will reproduce themselves. That is what social reproduction means. And there it is. The Marxist feminists, through the idea of social reproduction. And by the way, guys, social reproduction is one of the reasons that they use abortion, or what they call reproductive justice, as a strategy to try to. The whole point is that abortion will free women from being oppressed under the gender binary. The gender binary was created by capitalism. And when women don't have to have kids and they don't have to be stuck in the home, that is an attack on the nuclear family, which is an attack on social reproduction, which is an attack on capitalism. Because if they can disrupt the nuclear family, then the nuclear family will cease to uphold and reproduce capitalism. Let's rewind, listen again.
To do that. But the other thing that I want to talk about is sort of what you hear people talk about when they talk about the crisis of care, or what Marxist feminists might call the crisis of social reproductive labor. And that's this idea that, like, we know it's work to raise human beings. Not only is it work to raise human beings, it's work to reestablish ourselves.
Can we turn this around using their tactics? No, you can't. No, you can't. Which is why every time conservatives try to use leftist tactics, they fail over and over and over and over and over again. The reason you cannot turn this around using their tactics is because they are in the power position. You are not in the power position. What everyone needs to be doing right now is learning the language and learning what these people actually mean and learning what these people believe. If you do not know what these people believe, if you do not know what their language is, you will never be able to defeat them. But too many people want to skip over the learning part and they want to go right to the tactical part, which is why the conservative right constantly and perpetually implements tactics that fail and have no hope of success at all, because they do not fundamentally understand the enemy that they are fighting. If you do not understand the enemy, really understand them, not the bullshit talking points, not the fucking political narrative, not the propaganda. If you do not understand your enemy in the way that they understand themselves, you will never, ever, 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 ever be able to defeat them. Yes, this is correct. Basically, conservatives are the bottoms and the Marxists are the top. And the conservatives are perpetually getting bent over and fucked and continuing to use the same tactics that get them bent over and fucked. And then they wonder why they continue to get bent over and fucked. Well, you continue to get bent over and fucked because you're not understanding that what your enemy is doing to get you into the position of getting you bent over and fucking you. And you keep doing the same thing over and 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 over again, and you expect different results. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. If you don't understand your enemy, you are going to continue to get bent over and fucked until you do. And if you refuse, then you're going to be there for the rest of your life. Hope you're enjoying it. Just saw on Twitter that Barnes & Noble has a banned book section. They're using Moms for Liberty tactics against them to make money. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. And of course, conservatives are going to come out and say, well, you know what? If you can buy the books in Barnes & Noble, that means that they're not really banned in the first place. So we're not banning books, because of course, conservatives think that all they need to do to win is to call out the hypocrisy of the left, because like that's ever worked, ever in the history of conservatism. So the people whose books they're banning are going to make more money. The books are going to get more popular. The books are going to be more widely read. And conservatives aren't going to get anything from it. And by the way, the whole book banning bullshit's going to get overturned by the courts anyway. Well done, conservatives. Well done. MB, conservatives are following the exact definition of insanity. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And when you tell them that, here's what they're going to say. Well, what do you want us to do? You don't want us to do anything. You're a leftist. You're a psyop. You're a socialist. You're fat. You're ugly. You just want us to lose. No. What I want you to do is to understand your enemy. And if you refuse to understand your enemy, then you have no hope of defeating them at all.
Day to day, to feed ourselves, to clean ourselves, to take care of our emotional stability, to take care of our elderly, so that we could show up and create profit for somebody else. And people have talked about how we have this crisis in care where there's just not enough labor to go around, whether it be private labor or labor in the home, to provide this kind of work. And so what that means is that we need, or not we, but whatever you want to call it, the ruling class, the boss class, the 1%.
How about the capitalists?
There's this push to sort of recategorize bodies and to really discipline what bodies belong in what categories in order to extract that reproductive labor, if that makes any sense at all. I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everything you guys are saying.
You know better. You know better than to be asking this question. Do they really understand their enemy is capitalism? Really? Really? Because they've literally said capitalism in this presentation. You know better. You come to my streams all the time. You're in my community. You come to my Zoom calls. You know better. How many times have we heard these people say capitalism? How many times have we heard these people say capitalism in this presentation? I am so sick. This is like the new conservative talking point. When they come around to finally start accepting what I'm telling them, the very next thing is, well, they don't really understand that it's capitalism. Well, how don't they understand it? How don't they understand it? When they literally say that it's capitalism over and 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 over again. How is it that they don't understand that it's capitalism when they're literally using the term capitalism? How is it that they don't understand that capitalism means private property when they literally say that capitalism is private property? These people are not the ones who don't understand. It's conservatives who refuse to listen to what is being shown right in front of them that don't understand, and you should know better. Their definition, oh my fucking God, I cannot even believe this is the situation that I'm in, because you guys are on this channel all the fucking time. This is why I'm quitting. This is why I don't want to do this shit any fucking more. And I keep having to get reeled back in by people in my life saying, Carlin, you don't really want to quit. And I'm like, yeah, I really do. They're like, no, you really don't. I'm like, yeah, I really do. And then they say, here's all the stuff we're going to do for you, Carlin, if you just don't quit. And I say, okay, well, maybe I'll stick around because it maybe seems like people want to do stuff. And then people who come to almost every single stream I do say shit like this. It doesn't matter how capitalism actually works. It does not fucking matter. The only thing that matters is what these people believe. That's all that matters. That's it. Capitalism means private property. That's what they believe. That's all that matters, guys. Massage Share Wellness. Allison, thank you for the super chat. Key point for me mentally, understanding we are not in the power position. Thank you. I mean, this is something that conservatives don't understand. And yeah, I mean, I think that this is a really important point. The reason that you cannot use the same tactics of the left is because they control everything and you do not. You can't act like you control everything when you have no power in the situation at all. You have to go around and use other tactics. And it's like hoping and wishing and praying and like saying like, you know, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. They get everything, we don't get anything. We're poor victims of the world. It doesn't fucking matter. None of that is going. No amount of whining about how the world is not a fair place is going to change the fact that the left has power in every major institution because the left worked for power in every major institution for over 70 years while conservatives were complaining. So I appreciate you noting that point.
I mean, I am divide and conquer is, you know, I always talk about how divide and conquer works. Like if
got a super chat from Rottweiler. If they didn't understand capitalism, they wouldn't be so effective at dismantling it by taking positions of power in academia, politics, culture, entertainment. They use capitalism against itself. That's exactly right, Rottweiler. And this is why, like, every time someone says or they laugh, they're like, they're selling books. They must really be capitalists because they're selling books. No, they use the system of capitalism, which they define as private property, against the system of capitalism. They use the system of capitalism to distribute information that is working against capitalism. They use the system of capitalism to make money through publishing books, through doing classes, through doing conferences, through doing any number of things, through owning their own bookstores, because socialists own bookstores in every city, in every major city in the country. There are pure socialist bookstores. They use the system of capitalism to make money to fund their organizing activities to overthrow capitalism. So it's like every single time someone calls out and says, they're hypocrites because they're engaging in capitalism. No, they're not. That's actually a really smart strategy. And you calling out the hypocrisy of them selling books and seminars and classes and owning bookstores and owning publishing houses and all these things, you calling out the hypocrisy is going to change nothing. And they're going to be laughing all the way to the bank because they're making money through their own little ecosystem that they created through the colleges and universities. They have an entire ecosystem of people who only read socialist books, who only shop at socialist bookstores, who only go to socialist events and meetings. They have an entire ecosystem that is feeding itself so that they can sustain themselves to use capitalism to overthrow the damn system.
There's no community, if there's no like mass organizing, then you know what you're fighting for is going to crumble. But I mean, this is a great like segue to my next question, which you know, as hopefully everybody knows, this ties into Pride. Pride started off as a protest against police brutality, and you know, basically that. So my next question is for you guys. How What's the history of policing people's bodies, and how does this tie into the moment that we're living in today?
So remember that they define the police as the managers of private property. The language she used there was very important. They define the reason that socialists want to abolish or defund the police is because they consider the police to be managers of private property. Yes, I have them on video saying this. So she just said they're policing our bodies. That means, and this is not insignificant, that these people believe that your body is private property. Remember, their goal is to abolish all private property. Let's listen again.
What's the history of policing people's bodies, and how does this tie into the moment that we're living in today? So it ties into a little bit of my last question, but like now we're talking about actively controlling what people do with their bodies. What, like, especially like not just people, like what non-cis het white people do with their bodies. And this could like tie into like queerness or like reproductive justice or.
I can go ahead then. So there is so much history when it comes to policing people's bodies. As a Black person who, you know, is able to have children or choose not to have children, there's a lot of history, especially there, with Black bodies being policed. You know, you have starting off with, you know, back when slavery was around, the way that women's bodies were literally used as, you know, they were so heavily policed where they were just kind of forced to have children, you know, because in the slaveholders' eyes, they saw that as, you know, more money for them. You know, that's what it was. And the enslaved people were very often, you know, forced to continue to have children. But then we go a little forward, into history, and we see, again, Black folks' bodies being controlled with sterilization. We see this also with brown indigenous folks as well. That was a big problem, you know, because it came down to eugenics and not seeing these folks as being able to be proper parents. And so they coerced them to sterilization. They did it without telling them. We have all these different issues here. And then we come down to these days, and there's still the criminalization of Black bodies. We see it all the time. We see it in the way that we're, you know, treated by enforcement. We see it in the way that Black folks who are living with HIV are criminalized for, you know, having children. And, you know, there's the history of also, of course, sterilization there as well. So there's a very long history of policing our bodies. And it just has come down to this, which is why I also want to mention that, you know, this overturning of Roe versus Wade is not, you know, that was basically the floor. It wasn't, you know, the ceiling, because for Black folk, for other people of color, it wasn't still super accessible to us. And this is not anything new for us. The policing of our bodies, this is not new for us. This has been happening since, you know, the start of America. You know, this is in our history. So I guess I'll stop it there to pass it on to someone else, but this is not new. And this all has just led up to this.
Mm-hmm. Sassy said they want no private property, but your body should be your own. It's a contradiction. It's not a contradiction at all. These people do not believe that we are free under capitalism. They believe that everyone is oppressed under capitalism. They believe that we will only be free under socialism. That's why.
I can jump in. That's a big one. That's a big question, right? With some really clear answers. That, you know, pre-colonization,
Capitalism.
Pre the rampage of Europe and the church. I mean, in African cultures, indigenous cultures had gender variance, had exalted, you know, gender variance, had different kinds of relationships, love relationships. That was had.
Hey, Mark, I'm glad you popped in today. I know I owe you, like, I wanna, Mark, how would you, I'm not trying to pressure you by asking you live on the internet. This is very unprofessional of me to do, but I think you'll forgive me. Mark, do you think that we could coordinate with you and Buck Angel coming and doing a stream with me at some point? Because I would like to talk to both of you at once. I just think it would, not that I don't love and adore you and whatever, and would talk to you by yourself. He's been going through some shit lately. I just thought it would be fun. I had that idea earlier today. Anyway.
Had women rulers, had trans rulers, like, and heroes. So it's a long, and I'll bring in the church up in here, okay? Because so my family's Ecuadorian, and part of what made the project is, I was very, very Catholic, and that's something. The church is something that immigrant people. Here's what I hate about let me tell you about the left. That what I hate about the left is when people talk shit about people who love God, because that's a very white classist thing to do, and that is a barrier to abortion access. That white feminism will judge people who love God. So I come from people who love God. I did, because of my queerness and everything else, divorce the church. But I have come back to the church because of abortion, and I've been indoctrinated. So I have all the language and my personal history. I know that in Ecuador, Spain.
You mean to tell me that this here queer Marxist, and she is a queer Marxist, isn't hating on religion? You mean to tell me that not everyone on the left hates religion? Huh. Okay. Just saying.
Came and made enslaved the indigenous people and made them worship their new gods at the same.
I didn't mean to put pressure on you. I didn't mean to make it a thing. I'll reach out. It's cool. I do think it'd be interesting to have you both on the stream. But if we can't work it out, we can do separate, or I can just we can just have you. It's fine. I didn't mean to be a dick and say that live on the internet, Mark. I apologize.
Same places their moon and altars were. That's what happened. I know that the church has been used to scare people into submission, and it's still happening. So part of the thing I'm doing is kind of revenge for my indigenous ancestors and an amends for my white ancestors, I'm sure. Because we will have to talk about faith, or anyway, not all of us. It's not all of our work to do, but for me, because that is my authentic experience, and I come from that. And that's what implanted the stigma into me and my people, my culture and in my family. I have the obligation to speak about God. I do love God. I'm not kidding, and I want to talk to, the left and the pro-abortion people can be very, I don't know what you want to call it. They say intellectual. So maybe I'm an anti-intellectual. I don't know. I'm not a very institutionally schooled person, but we have to remove every barrier, and dismissing people because of their faith is a barrier to abortion, especially when you're trying to get people abortion. So I want to say that. But yes, the policing of bodies. I mean, we can talk about that for hours, and that comes from whiteness. That comes from colonization, and
Capitalism.
I know that lives within me. So that's part of my spiritual process, is to go, where am I acting out the way I was programmed to act out.
Okay, I just want to do a quick time check, guys. We have about 25 more minutes until I have to leave, because I have a community supporter call at 7 p.m. Coincidentally, we have about 25 minutes left of this presentation as well, so we're going to get through as much as we can. I just want to make a note that, the fact that we now have like a literal queer Marxist talking about how much she loves God, and about how she wants to, we need to accept people who love God and stuff like that. It's one of those things, one of the reasons I'm in such a pissy mood. I'm just going to be transparent. I'm going to make it about me. It's my stream. I'll do what I want. But I just watch video after video after video that just confirms everything I keep trying to tell conservatives is true. And I have video evidence of it. And I see this stuff all day. It's every single thing that I tell conservatives is based on seeing leftists say it in videos, and it's like they can't hear it and they can't process it and they won't look at it if it contradicts their talking points. And it's like to constantly find video primary source evidence of the left saying things that we know they believe, but that no one else wants to believe. And then conservative influencers lie to their audiences, even when they have evidence right in front of them that it's wrong. It's just like, this is like the hardest piece. It's like, oh, I was right. Oh, I was right again. Oh, I was right again. Oh, yeah, I was right. I got raked over the coals for that one. I turned out to be right. Okay, yeah, I got canceled for that one. I got called insane for that one. But oh wait, I was right. I have. It's like over and over and over and over and over and over and over. You know. Anyway. Yeah, but she doesn't actually love God because she's queer. That's like what they'll say. It's like, okay, well, maybe you guys can. Maybe conservatives don't love God because they don't actually act like Christians. Anyway.
And because it can't be the other people's problems, and it can't be what other people do. It's not the red states only that did this, right? It's not just the Republicans only that did this. And you know, we know, like Cherish said, abortion has been out of reach for many people for a long time. So the alarms have been ringing for quite a while. And yes, welcome. So everybody who's new to this, welcome. and follow people that have been doing this. Follow Black leaders, follow people of color, follow trans leaders. And, you know, they need your support and not your leadership. I'll end there.
I don't really have too much to add here. I think I'm learning a lot. It's just brilliant to be able to hear about where police intersect with your own experiences and sort of the work that you're doing. One thing that I did want to say, and Viva, you sort of alluded to this before, is that the right they're brilliant, right? I hate to give them credit, but they are, and they're learn
really not.
and they steal from the left, and so we're in a moment where the same logic that's been used to criminalize Black and brown youth is now being applied to trans people. So what do I mean when I say that? We know about sentencing laws. We know that Black and brown young people who are caught up in the incarceration system are more likely to be tried as adults, right? What does it mean to be a child? Who is a child's body? Where does that begin? Where does that end? We see that same logic being applied to trans people and trans youth, right? Does trans youth stop at 18? Can we prevent you from accessing transition and medical care, or I'm going to use a problematic term here, but adopting bodily sovereignty? Or does that not happen until you're 21? Or does that not happen until you're 25? So we begin to see even the manipulation of something like what is a child being applied to a criminalized framework. And so the right is really just extending some of the policies and practices and methods of coercion that it's used on Black and brown people, right, and queer people, but beginning to extend that outward in ways that are more visible or that are simply taking on new forms in the particular moment that we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so this is also a beautiful transition now to us talking about queerness. And my question to you guys is, in what ways are queer folks being left out of the conversation on reproductive rights? How do we see, you know, mass media talk about reproductive rights without talking about us queer people? This could be like a literal.
I'll jump in just very, very briefly, and I don't even want to call out the name, but I'm sure people are aware of the really heinous piece that was run in the New York Times just a few days ago. It was a op-ed piece titled "The Far Right and the Far Left Agree on One Thing: Women Don't Count." And essentially, it's an argument that trans and gender nonconforming people don't have the same experiences as cisgender women. And so to use terms like gestating bodies or pregnant bodies is some way an attack on women's, cisgender women's experience. We see the same logic being applied in the debates around trans athletes as well. So I think that that's one place where a lot more exploration needs to be done, because the right is, those talking points are becoming more mainstream, right? What would be common sense to reject even several years ago. And I think that, like, too, this is not disconnected from the decline of the social movements, right? Like at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, where you have, you know, hundreds of thousands of millions of people in the streets chanting Black trans lives matter, we've experienced a backlash or a reaction to that. And I think that the mainstream, some of those right-wing talking points have gained traction in this moment. I'll stop there.
And I want to add to that, because it's not even just the folks on the right who are, you know, pushing back, and like, this is, you know, this is like Democrats. These are people on the left side are like, no, you don't use this language because then you're erasing women. Well, I'm very much able to give birth, though I choose not to, and I still need to be able to have access to reproductive health. So who am I then? Do I not exist? I'm obviously sitting right here. So we're being left out when it comes to, you know, the language used and just completely just erasing us. I think also when we're talking about reproductive rights, right now we're very focused on, you know, abortion because, you know, what's going on, but that reproductive rights extends out to a wide variety of things. And that actually includes, you know, gender affirming care as well. And that is so accessible, and there's not enough people talking about it. Doctors don't really have that much information. They don't know how to talk to their trans patients. Like, there's just so much that right now is like feels almost out of reach. And we need to make sure that when we talk about reproductive rights, we're talking about everything that includes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Oh, it's so painful. You know, it's a painful moment. It's a painful moment in so many ways. And I'm really, I see pieces like that, and it really breaks my heart. It's really hard. It's really hard to witness. So I'm going to say that first, that it hurts. And then there's just so much, there's an exorcism. I'm going to say that people really need an exorcism on the right and the left of these colonized, you know, the colonial mindset of the binary and protecting that binary.
There it is.
And illusions in general.
There it is. Oh, they need the binary and the colonial mindset that protects the binary. God damn it. I need to make another clip. Hang on.
There's just so much, there's an exorcism. I'm going to say that people really need an exorcism on the right and the left of these colonized, you know, the colonial mindset of the binary and protecting that binary, and illusions in general. And what does it do? Protecting binaries protect power, right? Protects power and keeps people othered. Yes, and I understand, like, I have family, you know, that don't understand maybe the bigger than a binary, you know, but that's different than being against it. That's a different thing than being against it, that knowing and being against it. So again, it's like this intellectualism that it comes from, that it's all the way in the Times, this thing. I want to shout out this other group called Inroads. Inroads is is a thread
All
I've
right,
been
I got the
on for many years. It was an email thread, and it's a global abortion stigma circle. And now they have like more of a digital presence. They have like this cool website. So find them, join them. And it's been really beautiful over the years to be in touch with people in different countries all over the world and see how they're dealing with, getting people the abortions they need. I was in a workshop that was based in Jamaica that was incredible. And they spoke about how instead of naming women, because people do name women or can or have and still, but instead of just naming women, they say cis women, gender nonconforming people, and non-binary people. So they do this list that is very specific and I thought very beautiful. That they were like, we don't just say women, we say cis women, and then the people, and everyone else. So it's the global perspective for me that I'm like, okay, there is where we're at, and there is how other people are doing this, and it's definitely not just women. However you cut it, it's definitely never been. And I'm a person that does not identify. I say it's not incorrect, but it's incomplete. Is my gender identifies the ocean, to be honest.
Oh my God.
So that's my pronoun ish. But yes, there's a lot of pain in this, and for people who are just always left out, right? So those are the people who are also going to have trouble accessing the abortions they need. So it's not just like the words, it's the actual lived life experience. If you're not seen, then you're not cared for. And those are the people that we have to have at the front. And I think as far as the media representation, I mean, it's changing, but like I said, my thing is like everything's late. Everything's late and it's got to change faster. And yes, there's more representation in media, and we need less, guilt trip narratives, please, and less it was terrible, and more accurately, it's all different things. Abortion is all different things.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the intersectionality of it all, right? Like the like putting people in charge or in the front of the movements who are not typically seen or heard is where we got to be at. Changing language, I mean, as we shift, as culture shift, as we grow as people, as we grow as society, either for the best or for the worst, I think language shifts, and we gotta grow. We gotta grow.
I want to offer just quickly too that I think it's a politics of pessimism, right? That when reproductive justice movement leaves trans people out or focuses just on like a cis-centered understanding of it, the logic underneath that is that there's only so much justice to go around, right? Like there's only so many rights to go around. And what that kind of thinking does is it doesn't allow us to move imaginatively, right? In the ways that Cherish described. Like when we talk about reproductive justice, if we're talking about abortion, we have to be clear, we're talking about abortion, that's important. But we're also talking about all these other things that allow people to reproduce themselves and reproduce their lives, right? In ways that are creative and constructive to their way of being in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few other questions, but I'm just gonna skip to all my end and conclusion because we're got a few minutes left. But someone in the comments I saw was talking about, what about what's going on for the future? If they can overturn Roe v. Wade, what makes us think that they can't overturn laws that make gay marriage legal, or that make being a queer person legal, or that make hate crimes illegal? Is that what I'm trying to say? What's stopping them from doing that? What does the future look like? I know, Eric, you've been talking about not being so pessimistic, but it's kind of hard to keep an optimistic mind when there's just so much that we don't have control over. We don't have control over who gets elected to sit on, the Supreme Court. voting doesn't work. Like, how are y'all seeing the future right now? That was a loaded question. I'm sorry.
So I guess for me, I want to focus on what we can do right now. I do agree that's, voting is not the only thing that people can do, because that's what they always enforce. I will say, living in the South, the Supreme Court's decision basically, has allowed each individual state to make their decision, right? So I do believe that it is still important to, in your local elections, to still vote, because there is still, a lot of power there. So I do want to acknowledge that. I think that you should vote in your city elections and your state elections, because I'm saying for Texas, we got to get Abbott, up out of here. I'm just saying. So that part of it is still important. But then on the other hand, because voting is not going to solve everything, because we can see that, it hasn't. Being involved in your community, participating in like mutual aids, seeking out the organizations that are doing the work, and figuring out how you can, have a hand in. How can you, what resources can you provide? What are you able to donate money? Are you able to donate time? Supporting, the people, color, Black leaders, Indigenous leaders who are doing the work, supporting your trans leaders who are doing the work. Whenever you see, folks on your timeline who are, have their GoFundMes because they need gender affirming care, because they need to be able to, get somewhere safe to do whatever procedures they need to do. Don't just scroll past it, uplift it. If you have even a few dollars, donate to them. It's going to take a community effort and taking care of each other, because no matter what happens, that's what we're going to have to lean back on, is community. And we need to make sure that we're continuing to build community and protecting each other. So that's where I go with that, because no matter what happens, that's what we have to focus
on. All right. Well, I know we have about 10 minutes left of this, and I hate to cut it short, but I have about 5 minutes until I need to be on my community supporter call. So we're going to have to cut it there for today, but we did get a couple good clips out of it. It was everything that I hoped it would be. Guys, I am sorry I'm in a little bit of a pissy mood, but I think people understand why I'm in a pissy mood. Because I watch this stuff all day, every day, and it just seems hopeless sometimes, many times, because it is. Anyway, not to black pill everyone, but it's fucking hopeless. We are so fucked, and we are, like, it is irreparable. And so it's my job to warn you about the pain that's coming. And if you don't want to hear it, and if you don't want to prepare, that's fine. I can understand wanting to live in a nice little world of rainbows and unicorns and fantasy that the right is going to figure out how to defeat this problem, when there is absolutely no chance that that's going to happen. So if you would like to come commiserate with me and some others, I'm starting my community Zoom call in 5 minutes. The way you get access to my community Zoom call is by heading over to my Substack and going to the Unwoke Roundup email. And what you want to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom. And underneath this red box, you will find a list of links, and one of those links will be the Monday Community Zoom call. Click on that link, and you can join us in the Zoom call. If you are on Locals, I will be posting the link there, and I will see you guys in a little bit. Take care. See you soon. Bye.